So we are excited to be joined by the editor-in-chief of Semaphore, previously of the New York Times, previously of BuzzFeed, which will become relevant in a moment. Ben Smith, great to see you, Ben.
Good to see you, Ben.
Thank you guys for having me back.
You're welcome.
So I understand you have launched a new podcast called Mixed Signals on the Media. We have a little bit of the trailer we can share with everybody. Let's take a look.
In a divided world,
the level of dishonesty is out of control.
the one thing everyone seems to agree on
You can watch the circus.
is that the media
The corporate media.
is some kind of conspiracy.
So when we tell you that the media are corrupt, we don't just mean they're corrupt politically. It is much deeper than that.
And here's the thing. Media is a conspiracy. Just not the one everyone thinks it is. And we'll take you outside your media bubble. You don't get information from these people by waving your finger at them, treating them like they're weird monsters. You get it by drinking with them.
Every Friday between now and November, we're going to pull back the curtain on the stories everyone is talking about. The Trump trials, the trad wife trend, the TikTok ban, and of course, the coverage of Gaza.
Very nice.
So,
Trad wife trend.
Yeah,
Sager's
there was a
here
lot
for
there.
the trad wife trend. Yeah.
There was a lot there. I mean, I'm not just pumping you up. I genuinely think you are one of the best and most insightful media analysts out there. So I'm really excited that you're doing this
Thank
podcast,
you.
Ben. But help illuminate for us, what is the actual media conspiracy?
Well, I mean, as you all know, it's mostly a conspiracy to make money, and honestly, not a very good one. But more broadly, I think people often have a feeling that media companies are in some way trying to manipulate them, aren't totally on the level, that there's something happening behind the scenes. Often that's true. Rarely is it like the secret left-wing cabal meeting with Joe Biden in the White House to, brainwash you. But often there are specific things happening inside newsrooms that if you go and ask the right questions, you can figure out. I mean, what's happening at the Washington Post right now, where you have a former Rupert Murdoch editor coming in and totally cleaning house. In a place that had this very clear sense of itself as, democracy dies in the dark daily, is a really interesting moment. It's not, I don't think, and it does have to do with Jeff Bezos' politics and his priorities, but also has a lot to do with the gap between that, the idea of this crusading liberal anti-Trump publication and the fact that people weren't reading it. Mm-hmm. And I think I think that those are the kind of conversations that we're going to have.
That's great, and that's very important. I'll always say that, it's a lot. It's if you think things are rigged, quote unquote, you are right, but it's a little more insidious and very different than in the cartoonish way that I think a lot of people speak to. I actually was really caught.
Sometimes less insidious, Sager.
Yes, good point. Yeah, you're right. Sometimes it's just simply like a confluence of events. Let's put this up there.
Medium insidious.
Okay, there you go. Let's put this up there on the screen about BuzzFeed, something I actually really wanted to talk to you about. Vivek Ramaswamy making some headlines, taking a large position of more than 8% in BuzzFeed and getting into a back and forth with the CEO, Jonah Peretti. What did you make, Ben, in this column about, quote, why politicians want to buy the news and what Vivek is trying to do here specifically? What do you think the end goal is?
I think Vivek may even think that his end goal is to build a media business, but the thing he's been good at and that a lot, has been getting attention and to some degree power, not votes, not revenue. And I think a lot of politicians, think of media as a tool to gain power. The business of making money in media is a different business. And I think it was really interesting to hear him talk about media basically solely in terms of the way he'd used it to get a lot of attention. During his presidential campaign, and then I think Jonah Peretti, the CEO of BuzzFeed, listened to the show and was like, they very sadly shut down their news division, which had gotten them a lot of attention, relevance, but not revenue. And I think there's a sort of huge gap there in the way politicians and people like us even think about media, and often the way media businesses run.
Yeah.
So part of what Vivek has said, because people are saying, okay, well, you only have this 8% stake. Like, you're acting like you're going to completely take this thing over. And he's saying, well, you don't understand how finance works and the kind of pressure that I can put on this company. What do you think are some of the likely moves that he could make, and what's the reality of the level of influence he's likely to have?
So because Jonah Peretti, the CEO, controls has voting control of the company, you can't take it over by buying the stock. And in fact, the fact that Vivek has 8% of the stock in that context doesn't make that much sense. What he's saying is he can kind of squeeze the company by doing a deal with the creditors. BuzzFeed has a lot of debt, And, ultimately, if he and his friends, Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, want to buy the debt at above market rates, they could theoretically push the company into bankruptcy or threaten to. I'm not sure. That's a bit far-fetched, but I think that's what Vivek is saying. I think he is annoyed at people telling him he can't do it and is saying, no, actually, I can. Does he actually want to own BuzzFeed? I think Naima on the show asked the reasonable question of isn't this kind of a poor man's version of what Elon Musk did with Twitter? And ultimately, what do you get out of it? I don't really know. But honestly, what he is getting right now is attention, which is a commodity that he is very good at getting and seems to like.
Exactly. If anything, the return on investment for him is not all that bad, considering the amount of money that he has at his own personal net worth. I guess I'm just curious because you talked here about how politicians want to buy the news. As we see some of these late stage 2010 companies kind of come up for sale, do you expect this to continue? Are we going to see more leveraging of explicitly political moves to try and buy it and to push an agenda now that a lot of these are much cheaper than when they started for brand value? Or are we just going to see things go in the direction I guess the two of us went to? Is you started a brand new thing, we started our own company here. Which kind of fork do you expect to happen?
Yeah, I don't think that for rich guys looking to become more powerful, the two easier paths are to buy a big freestanding legacy brand like the Washington Post, or to start a new thing around yourself. That's sort of ultimately what's puzzling to me about Vivek is if what he wants is attention, he's great at getting it. The Vivek Ramaswamy show seems to be doing great. To buy a media company is in some ways you'd rather be the talent in this particular media moment than the company. This reflects what Breaking Points is and what you guys have done. Sure. I think, but it was striking to me. You just look down the list of the richest people in the world, men. Is what richest men in the world is the list, and it's Elon Musk bought Twitter, Bernard Arnault, the French billionaire who's buying up all the French media, followed by Jeff Bezos, who bought the Washington Post, followed by Mark Zuckerberg, who controls these vast platforms, and so on. And it is wow, this is not, it is, I do think that the trend of the richest and most powerful people in the world buying up all the speech is pretty notable.
Yeah, sort of point. Their personal plaything, whether or not it's profitable. I do like your original thought, though, that the real conspiracy in media is just capitalism, because I think that does get to a lot of it.
It's
capitalism,
usually the conspiracy.
And then with people who are so rich that, they don't need the money, it's ego, attention, those sorts of things, or whatever ideological project they may be engaged in. And
some verse a kind of ideology that's a bit about that not liking people saying mean things about them.
Yeah.
Present-day billionaires
That's the key.
are incredibly thin-skinned, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not sure if this is true about Jeff Bezos. Bezos really does seem to be spending a lot of time on the yacht with Lauren Sanchez, not looking at Twitter. But Elon just bought this machine that insults him all day and stares at it all day. What a radicalizing experience. And I think that's, in an old world way, perhaps a little bit true of Arnault. And I think you see this, just as you go down this list of rich guys, the media was the thing they couldn't control, even with all the wealth and all the power they'd amassed in these unbelievable kind of historic levels. And so I think they're trying to control it.
My personal theory is that everyone is thin-skinned. It just is a matter of how you cope with that. So, do you look at it?
Do you think if you were a billionaire, you'd chill out?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You just have to have a better strategy. I would like to think that money could buy that level of not caring what people, but clearly that's not the case. If anything, it makes you more thin-skinned, more outraged that how dare these people say anything negative of you? You're supposed to be the, undisputed master of the universe.
And in your own little artificial world of people on your payroll, which is the world all of these people live in, you are revered as a god, and your sayings are printed in books and read aloud and stuff like that. So
very true.
It must probably extra jarring.
Yeah, that's so true. I wanted to get your thoughts too, Ben, on this story that is wild that just broke about Epoch Times, which I'll let you set up what this sort of weird right-wing newspaper
this is the best story, but also if any of your listeners know what the hell is going on, call me. It's so. But the Epoch Times is this publication that started as one of those free, and if you're in New York City, there are 3 competing free English language Chinese propaganda newspapers fighting different sides of the pro-communist, anti-communist battle with kind of little red daily or weekly newspapers in the streets of New York. Epoch Times was one of them. Over the last few years, it's sort of transformed itself into like a really dynamic and widely distributed part of the MAGA media infrastructure. Really very, very pro-Trump, very, very anti-China. It is, I would say, strongly linked to Falun Gong, a spiritual practice that the Chinese government considers a cult and has really brutally persecuted its followers, in which then operates in exile, a kind of anti-Chinese media operation. Very complicated, weird story that then last week, that everyone, I think, was scratching their heads around, like, how are they buying all these advertising, these billboards? How do they have so much money? And then yesterday, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York revealed that they had that money because they'd been engaging in a series of complicated unemployment fraud scams, allegedly, and then laundering the proceeds into the Epoch Times through a series of kind of questionable charity operations and cryptocurrency and prepaid debit cards. And it is a little unclear reading the indictment whether this is sort of a Robin Hood operation where people who truly believe in the cause are stealing money to fund the fight against the Chinese Communist Party on one hand, or whether the fight against the Communist Party is a front for a vast, racketeering and money laundering operation. The indictment is kind of silent on that point. Maybe both. Who knows? I really can't wait to find out more, though. Incredible story.
Awesome. Well, hey, like you said, you heard it. Call Ben because I want to read the definitive account because I wondered the same thing. I'm like, where the hell did all this stuff come from? I used to cover the White House. They had tons of people that were there, and I was like, is it really a big publication? And they were giving, like you said, giving out free stuff. But now it's starting to become more clear.
It does seem like one of the details of the indictment was that the team in the Epoch Times that was committing these crimes was called the Make Money Online team. It does seem like finally someone has discovered how to make money online.
You may as well call it like the commit fraud and money laundering team.
Love it.
Ben, congrats again on the podcast. Excited to check it out. And where can people follow it, find it, listen to it, all those good things?
Yeah, it's called Mixed Signals from Semaphore Media, and you can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. And thank you so much for having me and giving me a chance to plug it.
You're welcome. We'll have a link down in the description of this video and in the show notes as well. And I'll be listening. Thank you very much, Ben.
Take care.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.